Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of Little Modular. Today we will take a closer peek at this bad boy, METASONIX RK3 RINGER SHAPER. As with all METASONIX products, this is pure vacuum tube aggressiveness. As the name implies, obviously, it could be a wave shaper and a ring modulator. Both of these circuits implemented in a really primitive way, which surprisingly gives you unlimited palette of dirt, distortion, and all kinds of artifacts, which are just lovely. Before you pop this module into the case, you will have to check your power, because RK3 is also really power hungry. It needs around 450 500 milliamperes while it's operating, but when you start your system it needs twice this power, so you have to make sure that you have around 1100 milliamperes margin reserved only for that module in your case. Otherwise you might run into some power problems. It's always a good idea to invest in a specialized dedicated power system. METASONIX is offering such a solution, and if you have one or two or three of these modules, I strongly recommend getting one of these. Okay, so let's start with the interface. Input knob, output knob. So you already know half of the story. Then you have the pulsar circuit. Pulsar that's what it's called in the manual. It has to do more with the shaper circuit, and this is the carrier level, which has to do with the ringer circuit. Here you have the input for audio right there. Here, output for audio. Here you can feed some audio or CV, and here is the amount of the signal that is fed into the circuit. One thing to remember about feeding the audio in here is that RK3 likes signals that are harmonically rich. It's a hardcore module and it requires some hardcore signals to be fed in. Everything with spikes, sawtooth. For that purpose I have chosen a trusty TB303 clone Xox box, and let's just see how it sounds with all the parameters turned down. So a good starting point is to turn down the tune parameter and also carrier level to the minimum, output set to none, and some moderate input. That's how it sounds. Typical TB303 pattern. Now let's adjust input. Just operating with the input, you can hear you get some really nice vacuum tube saturation, and you can definitely use this module for adding some vacuum tube distortion and saturation as a spice or a fattener. You can hear it gets really nice fat saturated sound. Okay, and that's without touching the pulsar and the ring modulator. Nice. Okay, I haven't really touched any controls on the Xox box, and of course whatever you do here will also affect the circuit, but let's just stick with one setting so we can see what's the difference with other parameters. Now let's try to adjust the pulsar parameter, which tries to follow the input signal in a rather erratic way. Now we need to remember that these parameters have a wide margin, and sometimes at the extremes it seems like they're not working. That's because of the tube, because the tube is aging and every tube is different. So we have this kind of margin, and each of the modules works a little bit differently, but that's nothing to worry, it's normal, that's the design. Now let's see what will happen when I adjust the tune. Small increments make a huge difference. Okay, you can already hear that those spikes. Okay, Oh, yes. That's what I'm talking about. Alright. Okay. And of course, this parameter works in conjunction with input. So when you adjust the input, it will affect the tune. They work in tandem. When you back it off, now at a certain point it will start to self-oscillate, which might be or might be not desirable, depending on what you want. Okay, I turned down the input totally and you can hear that it's just self-oscillating right now. You can use it as a simple primitive source of audio if you want. Let's turn it down and turn up the input again. So as you can hear, this gives us some lovely distortion. Okay, now let's see what will happen when I input some modulation signal to the RINGER input. What I love to do with this is to combine two completely different sources, which is a vacuum tube and really distinctive raw digital module like a wavetable oscillator. In my case, it's a bank by Livestock Electronics. So I'm taking the output of bank and feeding it into the modulation in. You know what I mean? Yes, that's what I call raw and aggressive. That's pure noise, really gritty stuff. And of course, the character of this will change when you change the input of the modulation, and it changes drastically. You can see I'm adjusting different wave shapes on the bank, and of course also the pitch. Everything depends on everything, so it all works together, influencing each other. So a good way is to only work with 2 or 3 sources, just like here. Audio source from Xoxbox, modulation source from bank, and from there you can get myriad of sounds, okay? Oh my god, please help me. Can you hear that? And that's all without even touching any controls on Xoxbox. Okay, now I'll change some parameters. Okay. It's all about just setting the parameters according to your taste and your ear. You can apply some typical modulation signal, like slower signal, for example an LFO. What I have here is a signal from trusty Batumi LFO, which I will input in here again. It doesn't have such a drastic effect like audio, but still it's usable for different purposes. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm adjusting the LFO tempo. Okay, so you get different effects. Of course, depending on the shape of the LFO and the speed, you can get different effects. Like for example, right now I switched this shape to a rectangular shape. Okay, I think you get the idea what this module can do. Now let's see how it will behave on some more typical different sources like drum loops, bass, guitar, and some different synthesizers. For that purpose, I have connected some loops from Ableton. This goes through the Expert Sleepers ES8 module, and it goes in here as some clubby loop. Like before, you can use it just as a tube distortion, or as a crazy color box. This circuit also has some effect, as you can see, without inserting anything in there. Okay, that's the bass guitar. Again, nice distortion. I love all of the METASONIX modules for bass. That's particularly where it shines, and you can hear why. Okay. Oh yes, please. With some crazy modulation. Can you hear what I'm hearing? Holy fuck! Okay. It's just insane how cool that is and how many different flavors you get. It's just like, you know, an instant groove maker. Okay. With some self oscillations. That's how it sounds on its own. Okay. God damn it, this is so nice. If you're looking for something aggressive with tons of character, that is the module you need to check out. That is really all I can say at this point. Thank you for your attention, take care, goodbye, I see you next time, and as always, if you like that video, if you like that review, subscribe, spread the good word. Take care.